I've never lost. I've run out of time. This man is the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Basketball Rejects Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch, or Mitchell, whatever you want to call me. I'm fine with whatever. And as you may have noticed, at least if you're watching the video, things are already looking a little different. Got a new format. Oh, look at that. Just dab switch on them so that you can see. Make sure I get the right side. If you're listening to this, you've only heard my voice so far. And that's because you're only going to hear my voice. Just some scheduling conflicts and stuff like that with Tyler, so it's gonna be just me doing this. We're switching things up a little bit. I want to dive into some G League players, some two-way contract G League players, so not just strictly G League, but guys that are on the fringe of trying to make the league, trying to get in a rotation and playing for their G League spot. I'd absolutely love to be able to get in contact with these guys, to be able to interview them. First up is Skyler Mays, where I'm just going to be talking about him a little bit. So let's get into it and start with this little tagline that I got going. The talent gap between every level of basketball is huge. Brian Scalabrine once said, "I'm closer to LeBron James than you are to me." And that stands true for even the guys at the end of an NBA depth chart. It don't matter whether they're the 6th man, the star, or the 12th man. They are so much better. The difference between every level of basketball, from NBA to the G League to Euro League to college, all the gaps between a lot of these leagues are so different. And we know the stars, but we don't know these guys, so I want to highlight their stories. And today I'm going to be starting with Skyler Mays. He is playing for the Atlanta Hawks on a two-way contract with them and with the Skyhawks. This man was born in 1997 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He attended Louisiana State University Laboratory School, which I think is more like a private school that kind of funnels into LSU directly. And he started playing on the varsity basketball team in 8th grade. Like, this dude was balling. But that's the kind of talent that these guys have to make the league. Like, you're not just some dude that's a walk-on senior year for the first time, for the most part. I mean, sometimes, but not a bunch. Anyways, a little bit about him. He's got 7 siblings. 7. Because his dad is a doctor, his mom's a nurse, and even one of his relatives, David Mays, played quarterback in the WFL and the NFL in the mid-1970s. Crazy to think. But, I mean, athleticism got to run in the family at least a little bit, right? But, like I said, he comes from a big family. His parents taught him the importance of loyalty, which, I mean, you'll see it throughout this whole segment, that this kid is loyal to, I don't want to say a fault because it's not negative, and a fault kind of sounds negative, but this is a loyal dude. He's a kind of guy that just, I feel like you'd love to have on your team, love to be around, even if he's not getting big minutes. He's just a contributor in so many aspects. And he's smart as hell, too, dude. This guy, he enjoys watching movies, playing chess. I mean, he loves fried rice. Who doesn't? Like, oh, that fried rice, like, I'm not a big fan of Panda Express, but fried rice is so bomb, dude. But those chocolate chip cookies, Will Smith is his favorite celeb. LeBron is his favorite basketball player, and he's a fan of the Pelicans, which makes sense. He's a Louisiana boy. And he also enjoys skating and playing some instruments. He played some trumpet when he was on the band in high school. So look at that. I'm trying to do my background research. Like, I'm trying to really get in, figure out who this guy is. But when he went to college, his major is pre-med and kinesiology. Like I said, this dude is smart as hell. Not only that, but he had like a 4.0, 4.1 is what I think he finished college with. Comes from a medical family. I think even a couple of his like brothers and sisters are in the medical field somewhere. But right now, he's a 6'4", 205-pound shooting guard. Crazy big. His first team All-State as a sophomore and junior seasons in high school. He led his team to the back-to-back state championships. Senior year, transferred to Finley Prep in Henderson, Nevada, where he averaged a cool 11 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and 3 steals, where he was rated about like a 3-4 star recruit, So he's at a good level, has possibility to make a name for himself, do well, but he's not like the Zion Williamson's kind of level, but it don't mean he's not capable of making the league. This dude's a baller. He had offers from Baylor, UNLV, Oklahoma State, Memphis, California, and Stanford before he decided to go to LSU. And he became a starter during his freshman year. I think he played 4 games or something off the bench. But his freshman year, he averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, just about 4 assists, 1.5 steals over 3 games and 25 starts. So yeah, I was off by 2. He started in all but 6 games. He earned that starting job early. And in his junior year, he was named to the second team All SEC, declared, and the conference's Scholar Athlete of the Year. He actually declared for the draft after his junior year, but he was told he had a nearly 40% chance of being selected in the later half of the draft. So rather than do that 40%, go all in on that 40, he's like, you know what, it's better if I go to school, get my degree, put more time in, and then try to make it next year. Which again, like I said, this dude is smart. You don't just, like, he's betting on himself, but he's guaranteeing his future at the same time. Like, you gotta love it, gotta respect the hustle. And again, at the end of his senior year, he was named first team academic All-American, as well as first team All-SEC, where he averaged just about 17 points and 5 rebounds. Like, solid starter, solid player. He had a game winner against Mississippi State at the buzzer during his senior year. Like, that's got to be an amazing feeling. I know back in my day I hit like 1 or 2, but that was way, like, before even high school, like when I hit those game winners. Like, just never had the opportunity after that. But this man's just doing it at the highest level up until you get to the pros, essentially. And his shooting averages of 44.5% could be a little better, but not bad, not for a guard. 34.5% from 3, which is solid. And then I've come to realize over the years that the free throw percentage is what most indicates whether or not you're going to be a good shooter at the next level, because threes are a little bit different. You might be a good shooter. It's so different how you get your threes versus how in college versus how you get them in the NBA. So, but the one consistent thing that shows like how good your form is as a whole is your free throw shooting. You hit those free throws consistently and they know the form is right, and you just got to work on smaller improvements. And he hit 84.5% at the line from college. So that's a pretty solid number. He might be able to be a little bit better of a shooter. I mean, we can all improve all the time, but it's a great place to start from. Graduated from LSU in May of last year. He played a couple games for the Hawks this last year. He was actually drafted 50th by the Hawks in 2020. Signed a 2-way contract in November of the same year, just last year, which has got to be tough too, because again, this guy's coming out straight out of Corona, has like a season cut short, like his senior season cut short, I guess. I mean, like COVID years, like I think these years are some of the hardest for athletes. That you're trying to make the league, you don't get the proper prep that you can typically get. You don't just get so many of these things that the norm is taken away. Like, you really have to be able to adapt if you're trying to succeed right now. And he's been able to show that he can. So like I said, he was drafted by the Hawks 50th, signed with them a couple months later. February 13th against the Spurs. This is an NBA game. This isn't college, G League, whatever. He dropped a cool 20 points, cutting a 45-point deficit to just 11 in the second half. Helped leading that charge, because it's those garbage time minutes. It's great to get people involved, because it's like your garbage time players against their garbage time players, and they're all ballers, and that's when you get the run. And when you're down and you're able to cut a lead by 34 points, that's insane. Like, I'd love to have a guy that just doesn't give up. Like, that's almost bringing you back kind of thing. That's what did MJ say? I've never lost. I've run out of time. Like, that's that kind of situation that you love to hear, love to see about. So in 2020 to 2021 last season, his stats in 33 regular season games were just about 8 minutes, 45% shooting, 35% from 3 for 4 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. So like I said, his shooting is actually kind of there. He can improve a little bit, but I mean, if he's able to up the amount of like his attempts while keeping those percentages, that's a solid look. There's a lot of players that have shot way more at way less efficient. So I mean, just go in with that, He's typically played a shooting guard. I mean, 6'4", but that's a little small for an NBA shooting guard. You got guys that are 6'6", 6'7", so he's kind of being chosen to be a combo guard. But just because he's chosen to be a combo guard doesn't mean that, and because he's typically played shooting guard, doesn't mean that he is not a capable playmaker. He's not a capable ball handler of running an offense. He has shown his capability as a point guard to be productive and a scorer who can knock down shots and get to the rim. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent, but he has shown the capability to run an offense. I was watching highlights, and like, this guy's IQ is like crazy, and I truly think that when it comes to playing college ball, those 4 years really do make your IQ way better. Like, your decision making is so much better basically at the time you're 22 than it is at the time you're 18. And so when you come into the league with that, it's huge. Rather than learning it through the league, it can make things kind of difficult. He played a decent amount last season, like I said, 33 games. That was mostly due to the Hawks' injuries, and but they have a little bit more depth this year, adding Lou Will, bringing back Lou Will, adding a couple other people. So it might be a little bit harder to crack the rotation, but I mean, I've seen enough of this guy to believe that at some point he can become a contributor. I don't know if he necessarily becomes a starter or a star, but I think he's a solid player on any team. And again, like we'll get into it in a little bit, but the locker room presence could be huge alone. And so let's go back into his life a little bit. Originally, his focus was split with football, but in the ninth grade, he dropped that for basketball. He's like, I need to focus on one, and he focused on this. He credits his upperclassmate Aaron Epps, and I'm going to butcher this name, but Duop, D-U-O-P, Reith, for helping him make a smooth transition to his new LSU team as he came from his high school teams, and for Ben Simmons for hosting him during his official visit. I mean, if you got Ben Simmons hosting you, like, that's got to be a pretty good indicator that it's going to make you want to choose that school. And I didn't even mention this yet because I've been talking about his offense a little bit, but I mean, he's a solid defender at 6'4", 6'7", solid build, solid body. Defense is where he really seems to specialize. He's improved his jump shooting, but he committed less than 2 fouls per game every single season that he played in college, which is crazy to think about as a guard defending guys that are attacking constantly, that you're not even fouling twice. Like, I went through foul trouble, and that's because I was looking to block too many shots, but I've seen this guy get some clean steals, some clean swipes. Just overall, like I said, his IQ, I think, is what really differentiates himself from a lot of these players. Offensively, he makes the right plays. Defensively, he knows kind of when to help or to, like, fake the help, go for a steal, whatever. But all around, his IQ is huge, and it's also been known that he's a great locker room guy. He's a clear leader for the LSU Tigers. He was described by a former teammate as steady, consistent, dependable, and that's what you want out of a leader, and that's what you need to do if you're trying to make it to the next level. Like, you got to be willing to put in that work. But as of right now, he's a solid project player. Like, he's a little bit older than rookies because, again, he went to school for 4 years, but his work ethic, leadership, I think that'll help him a little bit more, like help him crack a spot in the rotation because he's just a little bit more mature than a lot of people. And coming from a guy that isn't necessarily looking to be a star right away, like he's just like, I'm just trying to make a role for myself. I think that's a great spot, great mentality to have, and I hope it works out. Like, we're gonna get into it even more, but like, I just from the couple of hours of research I did about this dude, like, I love him and already want him to succeed, and it seems that he can truly be a spark for a lot of these teams. Just like, you put him in and he might get hot, get going, and get your team going. I mean, like I said, he helped be the reason that they cut a 34-point deficit. That's never a bad place to be. But like I said, he's a guy that's willing to do the work, knows and accepts his role, and especially he loves to develop positive relationships with his teammates and coaches, and that alone might help him crack a rotation. Like, we know guys in the NBA that have been there forever, and it almost seems like they're there to be a coach or just like a personality to keep things in the locker room good. And if that's the kind of guy that if that's the kind of player that this guy turns into, just being a presence, that's not a bad place to be either. That's NBA level presence. You're top 450 in the world, and even, which like is really higher if you're just there for your presence. You got to think, like, you talent wise you might not be there, but like your presence is so much better than the talent of other people that they're like, damn, I need to have this guy on my team. And I mean, he really can do this well, and I keep going back to how smart this dude is, but he's a superior pick and roll ball handler. 98th percentile in college, high IQ, just huge help. If he had a little bit more of a steady jumper, like at least for shooting off the dribble especially, I think he could be deadly. Just, he makes a lot of the right reads, but if he can just have that little 17-foot jumper, just get around the screen and then knock it down consistently, ooh, nightmare right there. But like I said, I think he can be a nice rotation player. His size is more of a tweener. Like, he's a big point guard, small shooting guard, so he's gonna probably play that off role. I mean, if he's on the Hawks right now, so he's playing with Trae Young, he's not gonna get a starting role over Trae. Trae's a baller, but that doesn't mean he can't be like an off guard or a bench player, just helping run the offense and all that. But again, going back to like some of his early life stuff, not necessarily early, a little bit more college, but he was that quote of steady, consistent, dependable was also about just his ability to maintain a balance of life, school, basketball, his priorities, so that he could succeed, and he's done that. But he's not a guy without his own like sad story kind of thing. That in 2018, September of 2018, his best friend and LSU teammate Wade Sims was killed by a gunshot wound, and that forced him to do kind of a lot of growing up. That this was a guy who was his best friend. He described the two of them, as yin and yang. They knew how to read each other well off the court, like just best friends. And that Mays even just he went to the vigil and gave like an 11-minute eulogy of just talking about his best friend, saying all these things that, and like I said, he had to do some growing up. That was his biggest fear, was to go up there and do that. But he said it was easy because he was talking about his boy. And it like I couldn't imagine going through something like that. Like somebody that has helped push you in basketball your whole life to help you achieve your dreams. And he said that that's one of the reasons why he's like been able to be successful in basketball, is that the hard work that he saw his friend put in, he wanted to emulate that, and he put everything into basketball. He became more focused, more driven, and it's just so admirable to be like, you know what, like I'm not doing this just for me anymore. I'm doing this for us. And it's dope to hear that he's still super close with the Sims family. Like they show support for each other. He had them at the draft. Like, you know, they're keeping in contact because they're just family. Like they see each other as like their other parents, or like the Sims parents see him as like their other son. And I have relationships like that, so I can't imagine losing somebody like that. And it's dope to hear that they're still close and still helping each other out. And basically, to end this, I'm gonna say that one of the quotes he lives by is from Oscar Wilde, where some people bring happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. And he wants to be one of those people that bring it wherever he goes. So you love to hear that he's just all around a good guy, really wants to just make people's lives better, work on himself, work on others, and just improve his situation. And going back to like, where do I think he fits in the league? Like, I think a player like that, like a person like that, just he has a role with a team. That some team's going to find him and be like, this guy's putting in the work. Like, even if it's just to show other rookies and young players, like, this is the work ethic that you need to succeed. That this is the kind of attitude we want in this locker room. That alone could be huge for this. And I mean, let's say his NBA career doesn't work out. I mean, I think he's got a lock in some overseas league, whether it be like Australia, China, probably even the Euro League. Like, I think he makes it somewhere. But his IQ is really what separates him from everybody else. And I mean, if he doesn't make those leagues, this dude can go on to like get his doctorate and be like a legitimate doctor. So this guy's balling in life, and you just absolutely love to see it. And I know I'm rooting for him. Like, I would love to, like I said, I would absolutely love to be able to interview this guy, ask him about some of these lifestyle things that he has to go through, or like what his day-to-day life is on being a two-way contract player, like playing for the G League but also playing for the NBA. Like, I know these guys' lives are so different, and as I've said, we know the superstars of the league. We know the LeBron James, we know the Kyrie Irvings, the Kevin Durant, the Steph Currys. We know these guys, but the guys at the end of the bench we don't hear much about. And I would love to interview him just to get the opportunity for him to share his story more, for him to help build his brand, but so that he can use me as an opportunity, as a catalyst to go out to his own fans and just build his brand on his own. Like, I'd love to see it because I truly do believe in this guy. I think one way or another we'll see him around for a while. At least I hope so. I'm looking forward to this year, seeing what kind of impact he makes. Even if I'm just following him in the G League, like, he's got a new fan out of me just looking through all this stuff. But now we're going to get into this next topic. I've been doing tier lists with Tyler and like Matt and Noah like the last 3 weeks. We started with the current players. Then we went to all time. I think it was all time, or it was just all time point guards. And now we're on all time shooting guards. It's just me. So there's no like debate here. Like I'd love to have you guys comment and be like, yo, I don't fucking agree with you. You're stupid. But I got a good solid tier list that's gonna make a couple people like meh. But I think for the most part we're really like I'm on track here. And I'm gonna explain all of them as well. So it's not just like, oh, he's just talking out of his ass. Like I know what I'm talking about. First, obviously, we're talking about shooting guards. It's Jordan. Jordan is in a tier by himself. I mean, he's the GOAT. Like Jordan logo. I had to wear this for the shooting guard week. He's too much of a baller to put anybody close to him. I know Kobe's plays the most like him, but I think the talent gap between the two is too large for me to say that they're on the same level. And I know people close to me are gonna be like, "Oh, you're a Jordan hater or you're a Kobe hater." Like getting not to be, but he's a level below. So tier 2 though, I will show my respect to Kobe. I mean, 5 championships, MVP, like the point totals that he had, like that 9 game 40-point streak, or was it 50, something like that. Like the dude can ball. I'm not gonna deny that he can't ball, that he's not one of the best shooting guards ever. But I don't have him alone in that list. I've got Dwyane Wade in that list with him. D-Wade's just a baller. I wish we had him healthier for longer, but I mean, what he did against the Mavericks in 2006, crazy. He could have had another one if my boy LeBron didn't choke in 2011. I mean, this guy, like, we forget how good Wade was because he played with LeBron during, like, the end of his prime years. Like, we really do forget how good this man was. And I'm not about to let people forget that because his efficiency, his defense, like this dude leads NBA history in blocks for a shooting guard. Like he's that good. And so I'm not knocking him out in any way whatsoever. Love Wade. I actually have him personally a little bit above Kobe, but that's because people think I'm a Kobe hater, but it's just his efficiency that I think is otherworldly. He knew what game to play. He knew how to do it, so he did his thing. Next, though, now this is where the debate might come in, and that is I got James Harden, Klay Thompson, Clyde the Glide, Allen Iverson, Jerry West, and John Havlicek. And, like, some people hate Harden. This dude is a baller. He puts up fucking numbers. He scores. Like, I have him on my... If you need to get a point, like not necessarily a bucket, not necessarily a shot, but a point, he is my all-time point getter. That it might be through free throws, it might be ugly, but he's gonna get you a point. And he leads teams better than pretty much everybody on this list, like outside of the top 3, other than maybe Iverson. Like he is the guy. And if it wasn't for Golden State being Golden fucking State, I think this dude has a championship, maybe 2. Next up, though, like we're going to Klay Thompson. He is the perfect complementary player, especially in today's game, but perfect 3-and-D. Like, arguably the best shooter in history. Like, when he gets hot, I think he's a better shooter than Steph. And the 40-something points and 11 dribbles, absolutely unreal. Like, you don't just do that if you don't have one of the best shots in the league. But he's also a great defender. He's one of the best defenders in the league. I hope this man can come back because... so much is going to ride on him and how good he is to see where Golden State goes. Like without him, I think they're like kind of a mid-tier team, but with him, they're potential, like, I don't know if I want to call them a championship contender, but they're like conference championship contender at worst. Then we got Clyde the Glide. This man's going up against Jordan in Jordan's prime and just battling it out against the GOAT. Like if it's not for the GOAT, if his teammates, like if his teams were more evenly matched, he might have a couple of titles, but he's not on that level of those guys. But I mean, he's up there with Harden and Klay for me. And then we're going to Iverson. I mean, Iverson took a game from Shaq and Kobe, prime Shaq and Kobe. They went 16-0 in the playoffs, except for the one game that Iverson took. Iverson, the 6-foot, maybe the 6-foot superstar, pound for pound best player ever, like basically inarguable. And like I can't have him any lower than tier 3 just because of that. Wish he was a little bit more efficient, but I mean this dude just willed teams to success that I just like no other. And then Jerry West, You don't go to, what is it? He's like 1-9 or 1-10. He's either 1 of 9 or he's 1-9 in the finals. But going to that many finals appearances says a lot. It's same with LeBron. LeBron won more, but West is out here doing everything he can. He's also the only player in NBA history, the only player to win Finals MVP while on a losing team. Like, that's how much this dude is a baller. I believe he still has the most points, like, totals in the finals. Like, he's that good. And then we're moving over to John Havlicek, like, key piece for some Celtics championship runs, putting up like 20 plus a game with a bunch of really good guys, great defender, could play in any era, solid shooter, solid defender, solid playmaker. I'm taking away just because he's a little bit older and I don't know as much about him. I'm not taking away from how good everybody else says he is, kind of thing. Then tier 4 is kind of where we get the everybody else and then everybody else below them. So I'm not going to be able to name everybody I have on this list because this is kind of where it expands. But here I got like Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, George Girvin, Pete Maravich, Manu Ginobili, and David Thompson. I think the only surprising one in that list is Ginobili, at least in terms of surprising that he's this high. But for me, Ginobili could be Harden. Like, Harden played with Westbrook and KD, and he decided to leave and go to his own team, and we saw how good he is. Ginobili played with Duncan and Tony Parker. I think if he decides to leave, maybe we see him have the kind of career that Harden had. But because he decided to stay, he became that, like, the optimal sixth man, pure, like, best guy you could have on your team to complement these guys. And so I have him this high up. You might have a couple of these other guys that be like, oh, they're a little bit low. But I mean, Reggie, as good as he is, like, couldn't get past Jordan. Great playoff performer, but just could have been a little bit better. One of the greatest all-time shooters. Allen, before he became that guy that's just like a catch and shoot guy, like, this guy was balling out, doing a bunch. But again, just wasn't able to win without multiple other all-stars basically every time. And it almost seemed like his best role became as the, like, third and fourth option. And so, like, maybe if he was there his whole career, maybe if he had the Steph Curry and he could have been Clay, maybe it would have been very similar, because this dude was athletic as all living hell as well. And that's kind of where it goes from McGrady and Carter. Like, these dudes were ballers. Who was it? Richard Jefferson just this last week was like, Vince Carter is the most talented player I've ever seen. And this dude's played with LeBron, seen Jordan, like, seen Kobe. And he called Carter the most talented. But I disagree with that. I think Carter's just uber athletic, like, arguably the most athletic player in history. But he still was able to create. He was still able to, like, hit a bunch of tough shots, clutch, all that. Same with McGrady. McGrady, unfortunately, career cut short by injuries. Doesn't mean that he's not an absolute baller. I fully believe that McGrady is KD before KD. That if he was healthy, that for his whole career, if things went just a little bit differently, that this dude could be like a top 10 all-time kind of guy. Like, I believe he had that kind of talent. And whereas Jefferson said Carter, I think it's McGrady that has that kind of talent. And them being cousins, McGrady and Carter, crazy to think that they're at that level, but they are. But next up, we got George Girvin, Pete Maravich, and David Thompson. Like, Maravich, some people are like, he's Curry before Curry, except he couldn't shoot like that. But, like, the way he moved, the way he dribbled, did a lot with the Hawks. Like, this dude was a baller. And I'm, again, one of the older guys. I'm not about to say that he sucks because, like, I didn't get to watch him as much. I know about the game. I know about the history of the game. I don't know a ton about his game, but I know where he stands on this all-time list. Same with David Thompson. I mean, that dude just put up points. Same with Girvin. Guys that, like, didn't get a ton of wins and, like, were kind of, I don't want to call them selfish, but they're not the most unselfish players, and so they're kind of just putting up points. Maybe it's just that the situation didn't work out for them. They didn't have the best team at all times, but it doesn't mean that those dudes aren't complete ballers and top tier shooting guards. I would love to hear, like, debate and comment on any of these lists. I don't need to hear about you thinking I'm placing James Harden too high, because I'm not. Like, just flat out, I'm not placing James Harden too high. If anything, he's low. I don't care if it's not a championship. Like, this dude's a fucking baller. Everybody else, though, like, I'd love to hear if you think somebody should be higher, somebody should be lower, or if there's a guy that I missed, because there are a bunch of players like Mitch Richmond, to name one, that I don't have on this list, but again, he'd probably be like tier 4. Like Devin Booker, guys that are kind of in the league now, like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. I don't think they're on the list of any of these guys yet. So it's more tier 5. You might be able to argue them for tier 4, but they're too young. Like, none of them are even 30. Like, maybe Bradley Beal is 30, but I mean, it's too early to tell on any of these guys. Maybe they just aren't in the right career situations, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to crack these lists. It's just right now that they're not a part of them. So yeah, that's my shooting guard tier list. Like I said, I would absolutely love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions and see what else you have. But that's going to do it for that. Moving on to this next one, start, cut, and bench. You've seen this, so maybe you've had some thoughts about it. You've already thought about who you think should be start, cut, or bench. I mean, if you're listening to this on the podcast form on like Spotify or Apple or whatever, then you don't know what I'm talking about yet. But I got this topic list right on my side. Might go into another one, but I don't know, just because it is by myself and we're already at 30 minutes. But anyway, so we're getting into this last topic list right here. Start, cut, bench, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic. And these are close, at least between the top two. I've been like, I don't want to say I'm on the Davis hate train, but I'm on the Davis let's slow the fuck down train. And so I guess I'll just start with that. I'll start with my cut. I'm cutting Anthony Davis. Some people might say, oh, well, like Davis was injured last year. Like, you really going to judge him based off that? Like, I'm not judging him based off his injury. I'm judging him based off his effort last year, which just felt at an all-time low. I know he's not playing at 100%, but when everybody's like, oh, he's top 5, top 10 in the league, I'm like, there's nothing, to me, there's nothing that this dude has done to show that he's top 5 in the league. Not when we have KD, Giannis, Embiid, LeBron, Curry, Doncic, like all these other players. I cannot place Anthony Davis above any of these guys. And I know he does it all around. He's great on offense, great on defense. But playing with those Pelicans teams and getting out of the first round one time and making the playoffs like twice is not enough for me. I've talked about it with Tyler, where there's guys that are just winners, and Anthony Davis does not seem like a winner. And when he comes off a championship and then the effort just seems to be almost non-existent, I know they had a shortened off season, but when the effort seems to be non-existent, I cannot place this guy as a top 5 or even a top 10 player. And both Embiid and Jokic are clear top 10 players, so I've got them above him. I mean, just to spout off the numbers, I'm not even going to tell you who's Embiid and Jokic, but I'm going to tell you Davis first. And he put up 22, 8, 3, 1.5, 1.5 on 49, 26, 74. Like, they're solid numbers, but are they superstar, top 5, top 10 numbers? Hell fucking no. But let me get into these other two players of Embiid and Jokic. You can figure out whose numbers they are. I'll say them right now, and then I'll tell you who did each in a second. But 26, 11, 8, 1 steal, and just over 1 block. Or 1 steal and 1 block a game, basically, on 57, 39, 87% shooting. Almost 50, 40, 90 club. Pretty close. And then the other player is 29, 11, 3, 1.5 blocks, 1 steal on 51, 38, 86. Again, pretty close to the 50, 40, 90. A little bit further, but I mean, the percentages are very similar other than the field goal, but he has a couple more points and a little bit less assists, but more blocks. So, like, me giving that context that I just gave, you can probably figure out that Embiid is the 28 guy, Jokic is the 28, 29, Jokic is the 26, 27 guy. But their numbers are very close. You get a little bit more on offense from Jokic. You get a little bit more on defense from Embiid. But I think that Embiid's post game is way better than Jokic. Jokic is just, he's deadly from so many areas on the court, and he's just able to pass out of the post. He's a playmaking post. And the fact that he's able to do that, I think, opens up his game in a lot of ways that Embiid, while being a solid passer, not being the great passer, means that he has to work for his inside buckets. And that dude is a bully in the paint. Like, if you like 80s, 90s aggressive basketball, I don't think you can hate on Joel. Whenever I watch him, he is just bullying people. And I mean, I don't know if his Twitter handle is still this, but it was like Joel Troll, like as in troll Embiid. And like the trolling bit alone had me dying. I'm kind of disappointed that he cut it out, but he's like, I need to win before I can do this. And it's like, bro, just be you, dude. You're hilarious. You're a personality, and would love to see more of it. But going back to the start, cut, bench, we already know I got Anthony Davis. Get the fuck out of here. You're cut. But for me, I got Embiid starting, and I'm benching Jokic. Like I said, it's very close, but it is very close. But I think that Embiid is a little bit better of a leader for the team. I know Jokic gets a lot out of his team and out of his players because of that playmaking ability, but I think the Nuggets are a really well-made team, whereas I thought the 76ers were a better-made team last year, or like 2 years ago even, when they had Jimmy Butler and like JJ Redick. Like giving up JJ Redick was rough. And like they have Seth Curry, but I think they need a lot of shooters around him. And maybe it just doesn't work with Simmons, but I would love to see them together. Or I'd love to see them succeed. I mean, they're fucking gone. They're not playing together anymore. But I would love to see those guys. I'd love to see both of them succeed, but it'll clearly be separately. I do think that Embiid he's going to win a title, and if like eventually. And if it doesn't happen in the next 2 or 3 years, I think he's going to take the Ben Simmons route and get the fuck out of Philly. Like, that Philly is just, like, wasting talent at this point if they can't win with these guys, if they can't find a way to win, they can't find a way to trade them. Like, it is what it is. But there you go for my start, cut, bench. And like I said, we're cutting Davis, we're benching Jokic, and we're starting Embiid. I know I said that backwards, but, hey, that's how it is sometimes. I mean, I have start, cut, bench. I don't have start, bench, cut. So, like, why not do this backwards? But before we get out of here, actually, like, we're at a solid 30-something minutes. Let's get into one more topic that is topical for today. And I'm hoping to get this out tomorrow. So, timestamping this. But Ben Simmons, because, again, going to the Embiid topic, just right into it, said he's not going to show up for training camp. And I don't blame him. I don't blame the dude. He was hated on by Embiid. He was hated on by Rivers. He's hated on by the whole city of Philadelphia. You have an employer that absolutely hates you, and they're like, oh, well, you haven't improved. Any other fucking job, you don't have to improve. And his lack of improvement is still an all-star player that is an all-defensive, like, first-team talent. That if that is your baseline, you are solid. If he was playing power forward, I've said this for months now, but if he was playing power forward, nobody would give a fuck about his inability to shoot, and he'd be more willing to shoot, but he's a playmaker, and it says a lot to me that Markelle Fultz goes to Orlando, who broken ass shot when he started, but fixes it very quickly, was putting up numbers before he got hurt this year, and I kind of think that Ben Simmons is the same. He's going to go to a new situation, and he's going to gain more confidence. The crowd's going to love him, especially if his trade value is low. Everybody's like, oh, it hurts Ben Simmons if your trade value is low. Dude, his trade value being low means that the team that he goes to doesn't have to give up all that talent. That they just get to ball out, have their best players plus Ben Simmons, and they're not giving up a ton of draft picks. Like, they're still probably going to have to get up a solid core piece or 3 and like a draft pick or 2, but it's not going to be as dramatic as it was, and that helps him. So, like, I think he's putting himself in the best situation. It sucks that he might have to be eating up some fines for not showing up and everything, but honest to God, like, the Sixers lose out more on trading than he does. Like, they're not gonna waste a full year of Embiid's prime just trying to trade Simmons. Like, they want to get a lot out of Simmons, but they were talking him down. Who talks down a player that you're trying to trade? I'd be like, this man is the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. You want him? You gotta throw the house to get this guy. But they're like, nah, he sucks. He fucked up. He fucked us. And so everybody else is like, well, if you don't want him, why the fuck would I want him? Like, you want to take our star player for him? That makes no sense. And I get why Philly wants to sell him high. You know the player he's capable of being. He is a jump shot away from being a superstar. And if you trade him for pennies on the dollar and then this guy goes and develops a jump shot, then you're like, well, what the fuck? Like, I just got some dude that is not half of what Ben Simmons is. He's not the level that Ben Simmons is at currently, and I just traded him for Ben Simmons' future. So, like I said, if I were them, I would have been talking about what Ben Simmons could be, try to sell him on that, rather than trying to sell him what on he is. But, I mean, the 76ers fucked themselves. And so it'll be an interesting whole, like, couple weeks, couple months. I mean, I think this guy's gone. Maybe they trade him to Houston for John Wall. I don't know how much that works. I don't know what team is the best fit for him. Like, I think if he could go to Golden State, he's surrounded by shooters, doesn't have to shoot. I think that is his best solution. But I don't know if that's even possible. I don't know who's willing to do it. Like, do you trade? Would Golden State be willing to trade Draymond Green and somebody for Ben Simmons? I don't know. Like, I think that trade is relatively solid straight up, but I don't necessarily think Philly takes it, and I don't necessarily think Golden State takes it either. So it'll be an interesting saga. Let's see how it plays out. But I think that's it. We had like 3.5, I'll say, solid topics. Talked about Skyler Mays. Like, if you guys liked him and want to follow him, I'm going to look up his Instagram super quick because I think it's literally just Skyler Mays. Yeah, it's just Skyler Mays. If you want to follow him on Instagram, follow him and, message him and be like, my boy Mitchell did a podcast, talked about you, would love to interview you. And he told me about you, and now I'm a fan of you. Like, I would love that, even if he, like, whatever. But go follow him, check him out. And then we talked about the all-time shooting guard tier list. You guys saw my list. Jordan, Wade, Kobe, Harden, Clay, Clyde, Iverson, West, Havlicek, Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, McGrady, Carter, Girvin, Maravich, Ginobili, David Thompson. God dang. So many numbers, so many names. Yeah, you can go back and listen to what I said about them. Then we had that start, cut, and bench. Davis, Embiid, and Jokic. And then we had a little Ben Simmons trade talk, Philly talk. But that's going to do it for this. Topic lists are over there because there's no other person over there. I'm right here in the flesh on your camera. But you know what? We're getting out of here. Love you. Pieces. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, share it. Please share. I'm really trying to get this to pop off, and I need help to do it. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, go rate this podcast on Spotify or on Apple Podcast. 5 stars. Subscribe to it. Do everything. Hit me up. Follow me, Basketball Rejects or Mitchell Rossman. Hit me up. Love you guys. Peace.